Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Corps studio. Yeah, it feels really good to be back. Welcome to the show. Yeah, back. Oh, in a very comfortable place with the audio being slightly better as well. I hope at least slightly better. It seems like than my last place where it just seems like things were bouncing off the walls a little bit. Regardless, this episode is not about my setup. It's about, good transition here. Ready for it? The setup currently at Hasbro and what in the world is going on over there. And some, stories coming out essentially, and let's discuss, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, of course, is Hasbro in trouble? So a breaking news article came out recently from Forbes. Dungeons & Dragons publisher denies selling game to Chinese firm. Here's what to know. So things at Hasbro, and we'll talk about some of the background here in a little bit, have not been going all that well. At the end of the year last year, they laid off more than 1,000 employees, even from divisions of, Wizards, which have been performing well. Magic the Gathering and D&D saw layoffs. Even though those parts of the business have been doing well, the rest of Hasbro has been struggling. Let's read real quick. Top line, Wizards of the Coast, the Hasbro division behind tabletop game Dungeons & Dragons, is denying rumors sparked by a Chinese news report that a struggling Hasbro could be selling its Dungeons & Dragons franchise to Chinese video game Tencent. Now, okay, so again, this is rumors, so let's just say it out there. I want to make sure I'm not actually saying that this is actual, real news that, like, hey, they actually were doing this or not. That being said, sometimes when there is smoke, there is fire, obviously, and there is reason to believe that this could be a possibility as to something that was going on because Hasbro, again, is struggling. And yes, this is about D&D, but again, when it comes to the cash cows right now at Hasbro, it is just Wizards of the Coast products, essentially. It is D&D and Magic the Gathering, the big revenue drivers for that company. Let's continue. Key facts. Multiple gaming outlets on Wednesday highlighted a report from Chinese news site Speed Daily, translated on Pandaily, that cited unnamed sources claiming Hasbro's financial problems were driving the company to consider selling the popular brand. Again, they are struggling. Hasbro is struggling. We'll get to some of those numbers here in a little bit, but yeah, laying off over 1,000 workers right before the holiday season, or even in the holiday season, essentially, of some of your most popular brands, you're not doing too hot. According to that report, Tencent, the Chinese video game giant that also owns popular social media platform WeChat, was in early stage negotiations to purchase a series of rights that would include adaptation rights for video games based on brands like Dungeons & Dragons, though the precise scope of a potential IP sale was not immediately clear. So D&D actually just had a big hit last year. Baldur's Gate 3, I believe, was the one. Essentially, that has been doing very, very well. And yes, again, yet another division at Wizards that is doing well, D&D. So Wizards, being part of Hasbro, they're like, hey, maybe that could be something we could take advantage of. We could sell, and we could actually save ourselves from this financial situation. That is kind of the thought out there. And again, these are reports that have, come out apparently. But in a Thursday statement to multiple outlets, including Forbes, Wizards of the Coast, the Hasbro division that publishes Dungeons & Dragons and games, including Magic the Gathering, denied the rumors, claiming while the company has multiple partnerships with Tencent, we are not looking to sell our D&D intellectual property, and the company will not comment any further on speculation or rumors about potential M&A or licensing deals. So, again, is there something there? Again, when it comes to these kinds of things, when I tend to see them, it's like, okay, yeah, it's probably not all true, but where there's smoke, there's fire. Again, basically, Wizards is the only division in Hasbro that is actually doing well. Hasbro is struggling very, very much, and it wouldn't be surprising if they eventually had to sell some things off to try to save themselves from sinking under. Forbes also contacted Tencent for comment. Contra, the rumor prompted responses of surprise and concern from fans Wednesday, especially given Dungeons & Dragons' strong performance within Hasbro's portfolio. Again, it has been doing well. D&D has been doing well. Magic has been doing well. This is madness to me. Zoe Zekman, founder of brand strategy studio Bedocious, sorry if I mispronounced anything on this, wrote on X in response to the rumor. Dungeons & Dragons is one of the most fascinating, deep, and powerful IPs out there. It's just been dreadfully explored. It was so much potential remaining within it. On the D&D subreddit, many fans reacted with alarm over the idea of a massive conglomerate like Tencent taking over. Hasbro is bad, but this would be even worse. One user wrote, yeah, I mean, I most definitely agree with that again. Oh, goodness. As much as I would hate to say that Hasbro's, the company to own it, it's like, well, okay, but that's probably better than Tencent, right? So, the devil right? The devil is the one that you don't. So, yeah, we shall see what, if anything, happens with the D&D brand over these years, but Hasbro is in trouble. Key background, Hasbro has been in a precarious financial situation for at least the past year, with its stock tumbling more than 17% in 2023 amid poor sales and a disappointing holiday season. Those challenges ultimately led to more than 1,000 layoffs in December. However, Hasbro says gaming products, particularly products produced by Wizards of the Coast, remain a bright spot, delivering a standout performance. In the third quarter of last year, following the release of the wildly popular Dungeons & Dragons licensed video game Baldur's Gate 3. Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop games have seen boosts in popularity over the past several years, attributed to a wide variety of influences, including its portrayal in the hit Netflix show Stranger Things, a spike in interest in tabletop gaming during the pandemic, and streamers and podcasters who broadcast their own D&D games to thousands of fans. Hasbro has more recently sought to capitalize on the success by expanding D&D to video games like Baldur's Gate 3 and movies like last year's blockbuster hit Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Hasbro acquired Wizards of the Coast in 1999, but in 2021 expanded it into its own division at the company. Surprising fact. The Speed Daily Report also claimed Larian Studios, the Belgian video game company behind the popular D&D-based Baldur's Gate games, was originally a possible purchase of the IP, but lacked the funding, and has since served as an intermediary between Hasbro and Tencent, which invests in Larian. But in a post on Thursday, Larian CEO Sven Vinke dismissed its rumors. It's silly that I should do a tweet about not buying something that is not for sale, so I won't. But in case you're wondering, we're not. Hope that clears it up. So, again, where there is smoke is fire is kind of where, again, the reason why Forbes is reporting this, essentially, in my opinion, is that there probably is something behind this, right? Again, Hasbro is a company that is struggling right now. The only bright spots in it right now are D&D and Magic, and they are not doing well overall. So it wouldn't be surprising if they actually had to sell off something that actually is working for them to try to buoy the company to survive in this tough time for them, because yeah, things are not going well for them, and that's saying it lightly. Again, when you lay off over 1,000 people, again, the end of last year, again, even from divisions that are performing well, you are struggling heavily as a company. Really quick, let's take a look at just their stock right now. $48 apparently, 94 cents. But yeah, basically, if you can see this 5-year trend, right, things were going very well right before the pandemic and kind of up to it. And then things started, just tanking essentially during the pandemic, and then started rising up and up and up, up until 2022. Around there is kind of where they came back. If we look at the numbers really quick, I guess 101, down from 118. I think their top was around that, essentially 121. But now, again, things have been going down recently over the past couple of years. Again, I believe they said their stock dropped 17% since 2023. Right now, they're all the way down to, again, $48. So, again, from the height from, 4.5 years ago of $118, they dropped more than 50%, essentially, which is interesting because, again, this is a company that has had more success in some ways, I would say, again, with their Wizards of the Coast division. The other divisions are not doing so hot, and again, they're trying to get buoyed by Wizards of the Coast. They're trying to get buoyed by the brands like Magic and D&D, which have a very strong and loyal following, essentially. And when it comes to, basically the Magic portion of it specifically, let's take a look at this. And there have been different kind of charts that have been out there over the years. And essentially, again, they are leaning very, very, very heavily into Magic, especially, again, that being my thing to follow, essentially, and why I really care about Hasbro at all, essentially, is because, yeah, they are trying to, again, as it was put, I believe, years ago, they are going to be killing the golden goose, essentially. They are trying to buoy the company by overproducing Magic, essentially, to make up for the deficiencies on other sides of the company. And similar things have been happening with D&D with what they've been trying to do, essentially. There's that entire debacle last year. We won't get into that right now. Regardless, again, if you look at the new Magic cards per year, I mean, typically, right, before, I mean, I guess even 2021 was not that much compared to what it has been lately. They barely were ever around the 1,000 threshold, you know, since, I guess, 1,000 threshold was around, like, 2016, 17, 18. Around there, like, 1,000 cards per year was the most. That was where we were at. Now we are near the 2,000 threshold. Obviously, this could be updated a little bit. I mean, 2023, I just looked it up, and it was around, I believe, 1,900, essentially. 1,900, I think 48 was the number of new cards, not reprints. Again, new Magic cards per year, not including reprints. So that is absurd. I mean, including, you know, the number of reprints that we get, the number of different products we get is absolutely absurd. So Wizards, again, their stock is tanking. Their stock is going down. Over 5 years, they have been doing absolutely terrible, less than 50% essentially of what it used to be. And then the number of Magic cards is going up because they are really trying to buoy it. So again, like, are they in trouble? I think absolutely. Again, when you start to see these kind of things come out, we're like, oh, the company might be selling this or that. And then like, no, that's definitely not happening. I mean, in my opinion, it's like there are definitely some kind of discussions happening. Those discussions, in my opinion, have to be happening, or are happening, I believe. But, of course, they're going to be denying them because they don't want people to believe that they think that they're in a poor situation as they are when they are definitely in a poor situation. And again, I don't want D&D or, you know, Magic owned by Tencent. I don't want that owned by Hasbro right now, but I definitely don't want it owned by them either. Moving on. Hasbro goal. I mean, years and years and years ago, this happened 3 years, right? 3 years ago. I think actually, let me check this real quick. I believe this was October. Yeah, October of 2020. So this was 3.5 years ago at this point. Their goal, which they discussed in their annual report from 2019, was to double WotC revenue in 5 years. Which is, I mean, we're kind of coming up on that, right? If their 2019 annual report, I mean, that basically starting 2020, their goal was to start doing this. We're on year 4, essentially, right, of this plan. So again, the company is going down. I mean, without Wizards, without Magic, where would Hasbro be right now? Would it still even be a company with how poorly they perform with everything else, essentially? And their goal is, again, to essentially grow Magic at an absurd rate, double the revenue. And again, the question for Magic players like myself, many of you out there as well, is like, will this destroy Magic? Because, yeah, that can't be a healthy thing. I mean, this is a game that's been around for 25, 30 years, right, essentially, and you're like, oh, yeah, let's just double the revenue of it. So, again, we're going to increase the number of products, we're going to increase the number of cards year over year over year, and that leads to some problems, right? That leads to some problems. Again, it kind of just shows how desperate Hasbro is, essentially, that they're like, okay, this is working for us. We need to hyper-focus on that and do all of it. Everything all the time, essentially. I mean, this is a very famous and actually, I mean, kind of like infamous, basically, chart that came out back in 2022. Thank you so much to Only on Tuesdays for posting this and putting this together. 30 years of Magic products. If you look at this chart, again, kind of like the new Magic cards coming out, it just shows kind of where things maybe started to go wrong for Magic in a way, because again, when you've got a company that is desperate and that is looking for short-term games to buoy up things that are not going well for them, essentially, right, with their other divisions, I don't care about how well My Little Pony does. I really don't. So I don't care about how well Transformers does. But of course, that does impact, those brands impact how Magic is going to be utilized by Hasbro, how it's going to be utilized by Wizards of the Coast, who's being forced by Hasbro to do these things, essentially. I mean, again, if you look at 30 years of Magic products, you had, like, for the first however many years, like, 5, 6, 7, 8 products a year, maybe. We start to get to, like, 2018, 2019, especially once we get to 2020 again. If you look at that little chart right there, right, there's that little 26 with, like, the star mark. Yeah, that's Secret Lairs. So obviously that just makes it absurd on how many products we are getting. I mean, again, even if you take out those, you're just seeing kind of the exact same kind of chart, essentially, with the number of new cards coming out. It reflects this in the opposite way, essentially, with products as well. Or I guess, one's just on the top, one's on the bottom. It reflects in the same way. But basically, how much Magic the Gathering players are just getting inundated with products and how it's becoming a bit too much. And you're starting to see more and more posts lately on Reddit about players just being like, I can't keep up. I mean, as much as players could try to keep up over the years, I mean, there definitely was. Again, you sit down at a commander table and you're like, yeah, okay, I know what all these things are. these days, and again, I do this for a living, all right? I do this for a living. I follow spoiler season as much as I can. And when it comes to being like, oh, okay, that card, oh my gosh, all right, what does that one do again? What does that commander do again even? Like, you are seeing essentially, right, like 300, 400 commanders a year now, when you used to get like 30, maybe 50, and then all of a sudden again, kind of with the rise of the more and more products, the rise of Wizards being leaned on more, and the rise of Commander all at the same time, it's kind of a recipe for disaster, in my opinion, where, again, Hasbro, a company that is struggling, is leaning on Wizards, which is leaning on Commander, because this is the golden goose. This is what they need to save the company again. And again, these are rumors on them, potentially selling something off with D&D. Not that I think it's going to happen, but again, where there's smoke, there's fire, in my opinion. And I mean, you can't deny that Hasbro is struggling super hard right now. And how are they going to get out of this? How are they going to get out of this when, again, their previous core products are struggling so hard that they need to be like, oh no, okay, we need to invest all this into Wizards. I mean, invest, I should say. Focus on it, because, when it comes to investing, they obviously fired a bunch of people. Focus on it so hard, and again, focus on Commander so hard. 2020 year was the year of Commander, and this is kind of where things turned around in a kind of exciting way at first, right? When it's like, oh, we're getting ice cream every day. Oh, cool. The first 2 days are like, great, 3 days. And then it's all of a sudden like, okay, good. Yeah, we got, it used to be a really exciting time when we saw the Commander pre-cons, because it was once a year. Now it's every month, essentially, you get a new Commander pre-con with new Commander specific cards and an absurd amount of commanders. And now we got secret layers that have commanders, and they're starting to say that, okay, those are going to be where most of the legendary creatures are going to be potentially from the year, because, hey, yeah, we know that you're saying that we're getting too many commanders a year. We're giving you too many. Okay, so we'll slow down with those in the sets. And we have seen them pull back in the sets a little bit recently with the number of commanders that are in sets. That being said, I mean, except for Lord of the Rings. That being said, obviously there's going to be those in the pre-cons that come with it as well. And then secret layers are going to be like Doctor Who. You saw that essentially, right? More specifically focused on the number of commanders, the absurdity of it all, and just how, if you literally just took a look at how Magic is right now, and just the state of everything, the state of Commander, the state of other formats in Magic, the state of what in the world is going on with all these products, and you took a look back from, again, let's say 5 years ago, right? 2019, beginning of the year, before the very first secret layer even came out. And you're seeing all this happen, and you're like, what in the world is going on? From a look from way back then, which I started the channel way back when, and then a look to now, and it's like, gosh, I really just hope something happens to change the way things are going with Wizards, with Magic the Gathering, with Hasbro, because, I mean, what's going to change at this point, right? Hasbro's not going to just completely turn around all their other products. They're going to keep leaning on Magic. They're going to keep leaning on Wizards, which leans on Commander to make all this right, to make all this work. And what is going to happen in order to fix this, I unfortunately cannot tell you. I do not have the answer to that. I mean, dream scenario, they somehow, Hasbro sells to a company or just breaks Wizards off somehow. I don't know how all that would work. I would love if Wizards was just independent of Hasbro. I think that would solve a lot of things, because, again, the demands that are being put on Wizards to, again, double revenue in 5 years is not sustainable long term. Again, you've got players that have been playing for years and years and years that lose interest because they're getting inundated with these things. And again, Wizards is going to say things like, well, every product's not made for everyone. Okay, sure, but that might be true for, okay, if I play Standard, only there are a certain amount of cards that are going to be in Standard each year. There's only a certain amount of products that go into that. There's only a certain amount of sets. That's limited. When it comes to Commander, again, you sit down on a table and you're like, I don't know what in the world that card is. I don't know what that card is. Okay, I am trying to pay attention to all these things, but when 2,000 cards are coming out every single year, absolutely absurd to expect players to be able to pay attention to that much. Even when it comes to just mechanics, again, just coming to mechanics, you're like, okay, what in the world? Okay, there's so many things happening. There are so many things happening. So, yeah, I would love to hear from you on this, though, okay? I love hearing your perspectives on these things and just letting me know what you think. What's the solution here, okay? What is the solution? And obviously, again, Commander is a casual format, right? Players can play however they want. you know, you don't need to necessarily know all the cards, right? I mean, it does help make games go a bit smoother when everyone knows what's expected. And again, over the past couple of years, it seems like things are just getting a bit more complex. Not with the complexity of just like, you know, oh, this mechanic's too complex for me to understand. Oh, it's just like, no, there's just too many things out there that I don't know anymore because it's impossible to keep track. So yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all this. What do you think about these rumors as well? And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.